Welcome back. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. It is a Freaky Friday edition. All kinds of crazy things are happening. I don't even know when I'm on air because I'm not paying attention all the time. People are texting me, tweeting me, all this other stuff. But what I was just looking at was Donald Trump's reaction to the Roger Stone conviction. And I want you to take a look at this tweet that the president put out there. I'd love to be able to see it also, but I can't.
Yeah, so clearly the president not at all happy with the conviction of his longtime associate, Roger Stone, basically saying, I'm going to try and pull it up myself as well, but basically saying that there's a different standard of justice for Roger Stone than there is for others. I'll read it verbatim. So now they now convict Roger Stone of lying and want to jail him for many years to come. Well, what about Crooked Hillary, Comey, Strzok, Page, McCabe, Brennan, Clapper, Shifty Schiff, Orr, and Nellie, Steele, and all the others, including even Mueller himself? Didn't they lie? Question mark. A double standard like never before seen in the history of our country. Sounds like he's watching Liquid Lunch, John.
Yeah.
That's similar to what I said earlier.
Without a doubt. And
I said it first. You see the timing on that tweet?
I see what time it is. He was watching Liquid Lunch, and the president of the United States just retweeted Frank's words.
He threw in a couple other extra names there. Bruce.
Well, one of the guys who's going to try to make a difference and get Congress back where it belongs with a bunch of people who support our president joins us in studio today. Good friend of mine, good friend of the show, and great person to go out there and knock off this lion mutt, Max Rose, who said he was against impeachment, and then Nancy Pelosi put the pressure on him, and now he's for impeachment. He's the congressman from New York 11, which crosses Staten Island and Brooklyn. And Joe Caldarera joins us today. Joey, thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having me on, of course.
Appreciate it. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
So I'm doing good, and I'm doing better to see that we're getting more opposition to this guy, Max Rose, because he basically lied. If you ask me, he lied to our community. I live in Staten Island, so he's my congressman. He's Frank's congressman also. He's your congressman.
That's right.
Also. He went out in our local paper, hidden away in Staten Island, and said, I am against impeachment. This will divide us. And then he went down to Washington and voted with Nancy Pelosi.
He certainly did. And, you know, that's part of why I'm running. That's the major reason that I've decided to jump into this race, is because he promised us that he was not going to be in support of impeaching the president, who fights for prosperity for all Americans, and instead now his tune has changed. And I imagine that's because of, you know, what you said. Look, our congressman has voted with Nancy Pelosi and the liberals and the left more than 90% of the time so far. And now he's following suit in regards to impeachment. This is not what the people on Staten Island want. This is not what the American people want. People want to move on from these witch hunts, and the people want to actually focus on fighting for the American taxpayer.
Joe, let me ask you, you've always had, I've known you a long time. I consider you a friend. Everyone's always viewed you as quite an up-and-comer in the Staten Island world of Republican politics. Why run for Congress first? I mean, the Republicans clearly had this candidate that they were grooming, Nicole Maliotakis. She seems to have a lot of national support. Why not run for something like state assembly, city council, or a lower-level office first, and then maybe work your way up to Washington?
That's a fair question, Frank, and I mean, that's really the question that I've been asked more than anything else since I decided to run about 7 weeks ago now. And the reason for that is because I want to be the people of Staten Island and South Brooklyn's congressman. I'm not in this to be a career politician. I think where I can make a difference and where I can effectuate change the most is in Washington, D.C. And what I see now is a void in Republican leadership to oppose our sitting congressman. I think that we need somebody who can land a punch against the congressman, somebody with real conservative ideals, somebody who really has been a supporter of the president and the president's America First agenda from day one. And unless we have
a little guy too, you're gonna have to duck down a little bit.
Well, listen, I'm in no position to be making short jokes.
I'm just saying. But Max Rose doesn't even make it up to the clown's hand on there. You know, at the amusement park, you got to be like higher than the.
He can't help his own height.
He can't even ride the adult roller coaster. Now he's representing us in Congress.
Now, I'm somebody that actually believes primaries are a healthy thing for all parties, and that's not something that anybody should live in fear of. But you know, and again, we're focusing so much on this district because in some ways it's representative of the country as a whole. It's the kind of purple district district that went for Obama and then for Trump that actually handed Trump the presidency and handed Obama the presidency before that. So these 31 districts that went for Trump in 2016 and then went Democrat in 2018, that's really going to be quite a story, not only in the congressional elections, but in the presidential election in 2020. But getting back to the primary that you're going to have to win in order to first face Max Rose, in terms of the issues, Nicole Malliotakis and you, what issues do you actually disagree on?
So I think there are quite a few. I mean, first off, my primary opponent has voted for the SAFE Act in 2013 in the New York State Assembly.
That's a gun control measure for people to live outside of New York.
So in a sense, she's been anti-Second Amendment. Additionally, when it comes to life, right, a fundamental issue for conservative voters, my opponent hasn't been able to make up her mind as to whether she is pro-life or pro-choice. In 2017 alone, she voted for two measures, one which supported Medicaid-funded abortions, and then second, one that went against allowing religious exemptions for employers in New York State to back out of funding abortions.
Joe,
so, yes.
Is there a danger of cannibalizing the party by you know, I know primaries are healthy.
Well, not everybody views that.
Well, I think primary. I like voter choice. I like the voters to have a number of people to choose from, hear a number of points of view. So rather than attack Nicole, okay, who's been on the show, we gave her the forum. We'll continue to give it to you. Anybody who can beat Max Rose is welcome on this show.
And Max Rose himself,
as much as they want. And we've asked Max, come out and play. We asked him like 10 times, and I was very supportive of him when he fought with Jon Stewart, who I don't agree with either, to extend the Victims' Compensation Fund, and he was a military vet. I gave him credit for that, but he lied to us as constituents. I know you for a long time. I'm going to do what I do to a lot of other candidates. Yes. Simple thing. Thoughtful gun legislation, or keep your hands off my guns? I'm asking you your view.
Can you just rephrase the question?
Okay, do you think our government, if you become our legislator, would you pursue thoughtful gun legislation, or you think we want as little friction as possible, everyone should have guns?
Well, of course, thoughtful gun legislation, not as little friction as possible. We need smart legislation, right? The biggest problem with guns is not the guns themselves, it's mental illness that surrounds the guns and the criminality affiliated with guns. So keeping guns out of lawful gun owners' hands is not the right decision. The thing is to keep the guns off the streets and out of the hands of criminals.
Got it. Pro-life or pro-choice?
Pro-life.
Okay. So you don't think there's any time in a woman's pregnancy that she should have the right to do what she wants with her body?
I believe in exceptions to my pro-life stance, life of the mother, rape, and incest.
Okay. So there are some exceptions. It's not a full binary litmus test. No abortions. There are some small exceptions.
Certainly.
So, Joe, tell us a little bit about your background. What did you do before deciding to run for Congress?
I was an assistant district attorney at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office for over 2 years. I prosecuted sex crimes and child abuse cases. So some of the most egregious crimes committed in our society were on my desk. I prosecuted over 200 cases successfully, and it was rough, dealing with those types of people and those types of crimes really is a rough thing to have to handle, but I worked with some great people over there and some really, really tough prosecutors.
Now, one of the issues that's been a real punch in the gut for blue state folks, New York, New Jersey, California, has to do with the tax reform issue. They changed the deductibility formula, and now you're capped in terms of basically deducting state and local taxes only to $10,000. You know as well as I do that $10,000 in property taxes alone, that's a lot of middle-class families in a year, easily, just the property tax increases. What did you think of the tax reform legislation, and did you support that $10,000 limit on SALT deductions?
I certainly don't support the $10,000 limit on SALT deductions. I've spoken to a lot of middle-class people and a lot of small business owners on Staten Island and in South Brooklyn about this legislation already, and most of them are strongly opposed to it because it hurts the middle class. We need low taxes. We need people looking out for our middle-class constituents, and to cap that at $10,000, that's a big mistake. A higher cap may be better, or no cap at all.
Go ahead.
Well, my last question has to do with DACA. You know, the Supreme Court is deciding whether or not President Trump had the right to eliminate DACA. Let's say the Supreme Court says, yeah, DACA is eliminated. What would you like to see done with the Dreamers, these 700,000 or so people that were brought here as children, grew up here, and have largely been a part of American society? What would Congressman Caldarera do with them, if anything?
So that's a great question. I don't think that the Supreme Court is going to uphold DACA. I think it's unconstitutional to begin with. And I think a lot of what we've heard now is that President Obama should have been able to make an executive order to allow DACA, and President Trump shouldn't have been able now to rescind DACA. It's going to be left up to the Supreme Court ultimately, as you stated. As congressmen, I think we do need to pass some comprehensive legislation to deal with this issue of Dreamers. Is it DACA the answer? No, it's not. We need to work this out bipartisan on both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans coming together alike and saying, let's solve the issue. It's a tough one, it's a sensitive one, but it's something we have to come up with.
Great work. Let me tell you, I know this kid since he's a little kid, okay, and he's grown up to be a model citizen. He's a prosecutor. He's well educated. He knows the stuff. He's in the Young Republicans, did all that stuff, all the groundwork, all the dirty work. Max Rose just wrote in on his carpet bag and took a whole bunch of special interest money and won this seat in a lucky one. But Joe Caldarera's father is a retired member of the NYPD. He was a highway patrol officer. If you don't vote for Joe, he's probably going to show up at your house. But we also, I want to add,
by the way.
I'll have to correct the record, though. He wasn't a highway patrol officer. He was a narcotics officer.
A narcotics officer. My bad.
No worries.
He's a tough guy. I know him well. I know the Caldarera as well. You should get to know Joe a little better, see if he suits your likenesses, and maybe he'll be our congressman. Best of luck to you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully you'll check back with us. You check out Joe Caldarera. Don't go anywhere. Mix up a quick drink. We're going to come back right after this.